All right, for this block period, we are focusing on finishing the details. Specifically, we are going to the windows on the right-hand side, and any place there's a window, we're going to go ahead and put that in, albeit we'll simplify it. If you put too much detail in, it's going to be complicated for you, and it may be too much information for the viewer. So as things go back, they tend to lose some of the detail or focus. So that's why we're going to simplify the farther back we go towards that vanishing point. So we're starting on that building in the middle, that third building, the one that's going all the way off page, and we're starting with a series of vertical lines. Now the left side of the building does not conform to 1-point perspective, so it can just be equal distance. The right side, however, as you're seeing, those lines get closer and closer together because it is obeying that rule of perspective, 1-point perspective. So the lines are converging. The top half of that building has windows on it, so I'm going to quickly put in some windows there. And I'm simplifying it down to 3 main windows. And then I'm going to go to that right side and make sure I do something to that right side as well. The bottom half of that same building also has a few windows, so I'm going to get those in, and then I'm going to move to the right side of that bottom of that building, and I'm going to simplify that again to just kind of allude to the fact that there is windows on that side as well. Now you could make this much more complicated if you wanted. If you examine that building is very complex. There's all these borders, and some of the windows are different sizes. Some have arcs on the top. So you can simplify it, or you can choose to put in the detail. I'm going back to that building that has a mural on it. You can see there's a mural that's painted directly onto that side. So I'm going to get that mural in, but I'm going to kind of semi-abstract it. If you haven't seen that mural, it's on J Street. It's a fantastic mural. It's a painting of a painting, essentially, except for the figures in the painting are escaping the painting. That painting, coincidentally, is in the Crocker Art Museum, so if you ever get a chance to see it, you'll recognize it from that mural. And then we are going to the right side of that building, too, and getting in some of the windows there. So there's a few more windows just below that top window bank. I'm going to suggest those. They're a little bit larger and longer. You do want to make sure that they get narrower as they go towards the vanishing point. And then I'm going to also make sure I close off that bottom of the building, because technically that is a street there, so it's an intersection. All you have to do is end that building with a slightly angled up line, almost a horizontal, but just slightly angled up. Now I'm going back to that distant building. That building is a cool structure. It looks different from the other buildings, so I'm going to try and give it some individuality there. So I'm going to draw the stripes on there. It kind of looks like this weird H pattern. It looks like an H, but then there's some horizontal lines above and below the H. So go ahead and try getting a little bit of detail in there. You don't have to make it too complex. And then there's some vertical stripes going on. Keep in mind, this is still simplified. I'm not drawing every single line I can see. I could, but I'm not going to. And then in a moment, I'm going to be shading that building in so you can see the value change. So there's a couple of ways that you can create depth in your drawings and paintings. One of them is through the use of linear perspective. The other is through overlap, which we have going on here. Another method is through shading, through value. Color is another method, but we're just using black and white for this. When it comes to your paintings, then you can use color as a means to show space, distance, depth. So I am going to go in and do those cars. The car that is closest to us on that right-hand side is conforming to linear perspective. So the top of that vehicle is going back to that point, which is why you see me angling back. Let me just state, you don't have to do the car. I wanted to, so that's why I put it in, and I want to show you how that even a car starts off as a basic flat shape and then it conforms to linear perspective. But here's the thing, even though it does obey in general the rule of linear perspective, I always cite my angles too and double check it by holding my pencil up against the angle and doing angular transfer just to double check. Because sometimes there's interesting angles on cars that may not follow one point perspective. So anyway, this car has a front side and it has a second side to it. It is 3D. And you can see mine's not perfect. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate. I like the idea of putting cars on the road, then it feels like the space is occupied, like it's not isolated and lonely. Plus, cars are kind of fun to do. They're geometric though. They're a little bit unforgiving, so if you make a mistake on the car, it's going to be noticeable. Like there's a few mistakes on this car. I'm going to adjust it as I go though. And that's the important thing, that most artists do that. They work on an area and will make adjustments as needed. It's not like you get it right the first time out. Last, we're going to go in and get some shading, right? Because that's one of the methods to create a sense of depth is through value. So here's where it's important that you pay attention to the value pattern. I want to make sure that on those buildings on the left side that I have one side that is lighter, one side that's slightly in shadow. And that goes back to that rule that we were talking about with doing a cube or a box, that when you have two sides of a box, both sides can't be the same value. Even if they appear that way, you have to slightly change one side for the viewer's sake, really, to try and push that three-dimensionality. So I'm picking the left side to make slightly darker than the right. And I'm just using a hatch here. I'm shading with charcoal pencils. You can shade with a graphite, or if you want to, there's charcoal pencils available for you. Once you have that side of the street, we're going to move to the right side again, and we're also going to get in the road and the sidewalk. You want to compare in your mind, where is the darkest value, where's the next darkest value, almost like paint by number. You want to be able to identify those. Likewise, you also want to ask yourself, okay, where's the lightest value within this image? Where is that? And you're looking at a black and white image, which should help you to determine the value. And while you're at it, you can make some corrections, or if you need to put in more detail, that's fine. Here's my finished one, and it's rough. It's not like a perfectly finished drawing piece. It's more like a sketch or a study, but that's okay. You get the sense of space and depth, and there's those things that we talked about, overlap and value and perspective, to convey that feeling of distance. Yours does not have to be perfect. I just am looking for an effort, and I'm looking for that idea of space.